Welcome everyone to the third round of the UZchess Cup 2025 happening in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. On your screen is Nodirbek Yakubboev. Nodirbek started off with a blunder against Arjun, losing the game very quickly. But in the second game, he played really amazing chess to beat Arvind Chidambaram. And now in the third round, he takes on Praggnanandhaa. And this will be a very interesting battle. Nodirbek has a lot of support on his side. You can see him just holding his king there, maybe doing some sort of a small prayer or a pre-game routine to just get into the flow of things, adjusting all his pieces, also holding them in a way where he's like, let's go, guys. Today is the day to fight against Praggnanandhaa. And Pragg is in the form of his life. He is currently world number 5, playing some incredible chess this year, having won Tata Steel, Superbet, and so many more tournaments. And there you have the arbiter coming in and starting the clock. Pragg is not yet on the board. Maybe it's something that Pragg is doing on purpose here, or he's just brought that thing with him that maybe he'll come to the game a few seconds late. And Nodirbek plays his first move 1d4 and gets up. Pragg is here 1 minute after the game has begun. And now Pragg will get into his routine, which is to adjust all the pieces and then open up the game. What is he going to respond back to d4 is the big question. Gets all his pieces in order. I think players adjust all the pieces more out of the fact that they would like to just get ready for the encounter. Knight to f6. And Nodirbek now comes back. Both of them meet for the first time. And Nodirbek just was a little bit confused before playing c4, but he does it. Pawn to e6 by Praggnanandhaa. And now, what is Nodirbek's next move going to be? He goes knight to f3. And generally at the top level, they go d5 here. But Pragg plays this move h6. Very interesting move. And you can see Nodirbek is a bit surprised here. But this is the same line that Arvind Chidambaram played against Aram Hakobian in a must-win game. But it was slightly different move order with e6, d5, and then he played h6. But this h6 as a concept or a move is quite popular. Players like Magnus, Gukesh, Nihal, so many players have played this. c6 by Pragg. And so essentially in the semi-Slav you have added these two moves h6 and a3, and Yakubboev takes a very important decision. He plays c5 and he does it pretty quickly. Pragg also responds pretty quickly with knight d7. Now c5 does make use of the move a3 because later when you play b4 the pawns are all connected. So perhaps this is what Yakubboev has on his mind. He goes g3. His idea is to put the bishop here and castle. And Pragg essentially has to do something about this space. He can go b6, but he in fact finds a very immediate way to counter that with e5. Very interesting move. D takes e5 taken. Now it's a pawn sacrifice. You need to move the knight. The knight can go to g4 as well as e4. Both are good moves. He goes knight to e4 with the understanding that if knight takes knight, pawn takes, the knight is attacked, and next move I could take the pawn on e5. which is the reason why Yakubboev goes queen c2. And one can feel that Pragg's position looks really good. You can take on c3 and then take on c5. And but Pragg takes it directly. He takes on c5 with his knight, which is also not at all a bad idea. And Yakubboev goes knight to d4. You can already see both players now just free rolling here. 41 minutes for Yakubboev, 1 hour 8 minutes for Pragg. Queen e7, a very kind of dubious move. The better idea was to take and play knight e4 when black was doing very well. But queen e7, and Yakubboev says, Pragg, what's your idea of blocking the bishop here? I just defend my pawn. And Pragg shows his cards. He goes f6. But I think Pragg has missed something. Of course, taking here would mean that black is completely fine, even better. But knight takes knight. It's a good move by Nodirbek. You have to take back with the knight. That makes sense. So he takes back knight e4. And now there's only one move that gives white the advantage. And I believe Nodirbek has found it, which is why he spent so much time. He's down to 30 minutes after just 12 moves. He goes bishop g2. Fantastic move. And I believe Pragg might have calculated that fe5 should give him a great position, but he's missed something. Because white now goes fe5, which is the best move. And if queen e5 works here, then black is completely fine and Pragg takes it. But Yakubboev has something up his sleeve. A very strong move here. And he takes it. Knight takes c6. Fantastic move. If you take the knight, I go with a check and you lose the rook. So that's the reason why Pragg has to move his queen. Queen f6. And although white isn't material up here, bishop e4 is going to net him a pawn. And you have to take back the bishop, because if you take here, rook f1 followed by bishop g6 is like a massacre for the black king. So bishop e4, you have to take this back. Pragg is actually in quite some trouble here, because now queen takes e4 comes with a check. There's also this very weird knight takes a7 move, but okay, queen e4 makes a lot of sense. For Pragg now, it's a question between bishop e7 and queen e6. He goes queen e6, offering a trade of queens. And well, you could take queens and then bring your knight back, but Yakubboev is deciding to bring the knight back without the trade of queens. White is pawn up, is quickly going to castle here, get the rook here. Bishop is coming out, the other rook can join in. So Pragg has to be super careful. Bishop d6 is a nice move. And if you try to defend it with bishop f4, then castles and black is doing really well. So queen g6 makes a lot of sense to trade queens. And queen takes queen, you take knight takes. So queen takes queen, knight takes on g6, attacking the rook on h8. Rook g8 played, and now an important moment. Rook f1 looks like a good idea to get your rook on the open file. But what can be more natural than to trade more pieces when you are a pawn up? So if bishop takes bishop, knight takes, and white is completely better with an extra pawn. However, here black has an excellent move. Let's see if Pragg manages to find it. This move will help Pragg to reach an opposite colored bishop position. He finds it. King f7. An amazing move. And the point is, if you take the bishop here, he's going to take the knight here. And that's a very, very cool idea. And I believe for Yakubboev, this small little inaccuracy which he committed by just putting his bishop out here is going to be that crucial difference between scoring the full point and a draw. King takes g6, rook f1 played. Okay, it's still something where Pragg has to be super careful because it's a very healthy extra pawn. But this is the nature of opposite colored bishops. They control the opposite color complex on the chessboard. And when that happens in the endgame, you are able to set up blockades on a certain color complex which cannot be broken. We'll try to explain this concept more in practical terms as the game goes on. Rook d8, rook f4 played here by Yakubboev. And now rook to c8. Pragg just getting all his pieces into action. And now pawn to h4. Well, do you want to go on the 7th rank with rook to c2? It's possible. But Pragg goes bishop e6. 11 minutes for Yakubboev, 16 minutes for Praggnanandhaa. And goes rook e4, attacking the bishop here. Well, if you come bishop f5, then maybe rook e7 already is a great position for white. So Pragg again plays the best move, rook e8. And black's idea is to trade rooks. White's idea is to keep both rooks if he can. One rook for sure. Bishop b4 played. And here is a nice move, which is bishop to c4. Because with bishop c4, you are trading rooks and also putting pressure on the e2 point. Praggnanandhaa finds it, bishop c4. Pragg is very well known in chess circles for his grinding abilities, for being able to fight in equal or slightly better positions. But also that same skill helps him to be very good when his position is slightly worse and he's fighting for a draw. Look at him, he's very determined. King f2. And now rook takes rook, rook takes rook, and rook e8. Trading more pieces makes sense. He takes. And this is something definitely worth learning from Praggnanandhaa, that, you know, in a tournament, you can't always have great positions. By the way, a check, and now Pragg has a choice between coming to h5 or f5 or going back. He chooses to go back, which is the slightly more passive defense. He could have come up as well, but and then g7 and e2 would have been traded. But anyway, e3 played, bishop goes back to c6. And coming back to that topic of not getting all positions which are great in a tournament, you have to have the ability to fight hard when you have a worse position and fight for those half points. They are the crucial differentiating factor when your tournament is not between a tournament victory or between a tournament going well or not so well. King e2, h5 played, now fixing these two pawns. And king comes up to d3. The players are quickly moving towards the 40th move mark, where they will be getting 30 extra minutes. But Yakubboev has managed to improve his king's position very slightly. Pragg comes back and he's like, sorry, I'm not going to let you go one step ahead. And when he comes here, he's also checking bishop c5. He attacks the a7 pawn. Always a question whether you should put pawn on b6 or a6. If you are a defender, a good idea is to place the pawns on the same color as your bishop. If you are an attacker, you would want to try and put as many pawns on the other color complex. The reason is otherwise you can't win, right? You can't win if you can't push your pawn to e4. Pragg is not letting him do that. Check. King goes back. And Yakubboev also smartly trying to get to move number 40 so that he can now think. So 40 moves have been done. Pragg gets up. Yakubboev has now time to think. He'll get 30 extra minutes to try and convert this slightly better position. Rook d8. Of course, this pawn on g7 is the weakness behind which could be an idea. So you kind of try to train your eyes on the g7 pawn and somehow try to get your e pawn rolling. These are the combination of this is what you would want to do. King comes up to g6. And bishop to d4. The rook gets back to e8. And a check to the king. King comes back to f7. King c3 by Yakubboev, but this is, I think, a small inaccuracy because now Pragg has spotted the fortress here, which is very important to see and learn. So first, this very important move, rook e6, which Pragg took good enough time to assess. Because if you take, you are giving up a pawn here. But Yakubboev doesn't take it. He goes rook d8. It's not going to help because Pragg comes back to e8. If you take here, I'm going to take back with the bishop, which is a draw. So he goes rook d6. Pragg comes up. And here you take. So Yakubboev now has a chance to win a pawn. He'll be 2 pawns up. But this is where the opposite colored bishop position comes in. Now you go king f5. And you see your bishop controls this square, your king controls this square. The bishop is unable to contribute anything on the light squares for white. While black has complete bind. And now you just keep on moving your bishop. Even if the king comes here, can't do anything. You can push your pawns even. I'll just trade it. So there's just no way to make progress, and Pragg will simply keep moving his bishop on this diagonal somewhere, and there is nothing to be done, and which is why this position is a complete fortress and excellent defense by Praggnanandhaa. And you can see Yakubboev offering a draw with a smile on his face, looking at the board to think what he could have done better, but it is clear that Praggnanandhaa defended brilliantly after things went wrong in the opening. And this is why Pragg is in great form. When things go wrong, he's able to pull the brakes. When things go right, he's able to press the accelerator. He is playing fantastic chess. He's on 2 out of 3, half a point behind the leader. And with 6 rounds to go, we have everything to play for at the UZchess Cup happening in Tashkent.